Okay. So what is really going on with Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt, right? Indiana fans, Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt are not eligible to play today. I know that sucks. But if you saw headlines saying their Indiana careers are over, that's not what's actually happened here. This story is complicated, but the truth is pretty simple once you separate the court case from the football team. In this episode of the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to explain exactly what changed, what Indiana can still do, and why these two players matter in a Big Ten title race where the Hoosiers sit at plus 300 with the third highest odds in the conference. Here's the first thing to understand, okay? The NCAA did not review Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt individually this week and decide those two Indiana players cannot play. All right, their status changed because the court order they were relying on has changed. So let's rewind and go back a little bit, kind of from where this began. So for years, the basic NCAA setup was 4 seasons of competitive or competition inside a 5-year window. This summer, the NCAA moved toward a 5 seasons in 5 years model going forward, but there was a transition problem. A group of players who started college in 2022 had already played 4 seasons and exhausted their eligibility under the old rules. The NCAA decided the new rule would not simply apply retroactively to those outgoing seniors. And so, of course, ta-da, that starts a legal fight. Which apparently, if you're going to cover college football nowadays, you have to also know all of your legal jargon as well, which is so great. I love that I'm looking that up all the time. Players challenged that decision on July 31st. A federal judge in Colorado issued a preliminary injunction in the Wisney versus NCAA case, and that opened the door for qualifying class of 2022 athletes to get a 5th season while their case continued. That is the door that opened for Daly and Wyatt to walk through. Indiana brought Daly back, Indiana brought Wyatt back, and suddenly an already loaded defensive line looked pretty scary, and it seemed unfair for some Big Ten teams. But there was always one giant asterisk. The NCAA appealed. Friday, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals granted the NCAA's request to stay that preliminary injunction. And I know stay sounds kind of like legal jargon, so here's the simplest explanation I can give. Think of the July 31 injunction as a temporary green light that holds the NCAA away from that for the time being. It could not enforce the eligibility restrictions against this class of players. Daly and Wyatt got the green light, returned to Indiana. But then Friday's ruling turned that light back to red while the appeal moves forward. That does not necessarily mean the entire lawsuit is finished. Red lights can turn back into green lights. It does not necessarily mean the NCAA has won this whole thing. It means the protection allowing Daly and Wyatt to play is not active right now. So if Indiana played a game tonight, Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt could not play. That is the current reality. I guess depending on when you're watching this. You're watching this a week from now and it's changed, then check your news. but that does not automatically mean they are gone from Indiana. Both players were at practice Friday morning before the news came down, and reporting out of the Bloomington media indicates they should still be able to continue practicing. Those are just not eligible for games. They're just not eligible for games at the moment. The last line is important because there are still possible legal paths. The first is waiting for the broader Wisney appeal to happen. The problem here is timing because college football is here. Kirk-Cinetti cannot build a week 1 game plan around hoping that a federal appeal process moves quickly because they don't typically move quickly, and also it's out of his control. So practically, Indiana has to prepare as though Daly and Wyatt are unavailable until something changes. But the second path is much more interesting. Daly and Wyatt could potentially seek their own injunction, and we already have examples of why that distinction matters. Other athletes have separate court orders protecting their eligibility, and those courts are not automatically erased because the 10th Circuit started the nationwide Wisney junction. Indiana even has an example inside of its own athletic department. Basketball player Sam Alexis is also pursuing a 5th year, but his eligibility is tied to a separate Tennessee state court injunction. Friday's federal appeal court decision did not automatically make Sam Alexis ineligible for the way it did Daley and Wyatt. And so now Sam Alexis, he's still eligible, but Daley and Wyatt are not. Daley and Wyatt were under one umbrella. Sam Alexis was under another. Daley and Wyatt got their umbrella taken away, and Sam Alexis still has his. They can wait and see whether it comes back or potentially go to court and try to get their own umbrella and stop borrowing from somebody else. All right, I'm done with the umbrella thing. I kind of made it confusing, I think. But now, I want to be careful here. I'm not telling you they will file separate lawsuits and that's their plan. I'm not telling you a judge will grant them an injunction. I don't know Daley and Wyatt. I've not talked to them to know exactly what they plan to do. And I'm definitely not telling you to count them in for week 1. What I am telling you is that the current ineligibility and their college careers are over type of stuff out there are two totally different statements. The first one is true. Currently, they are not able to play. The second goes further than the facts allow. And now we get to the football part because these are not just two random depth pieces. Daly finished last season with 19 tackles for loss in 13 games and 5.5 sacks. That is elite disruption, so he was definitely knowing how to play in Brian Haynes' system and his scheme very well. Kellen Wyatt played only 7 games before injury and still produced 8 tackles for loss and 2.5 sacks. So when both unexpectedly become eligible again, Indiana, you have to add those bodies. You got to bounce at that. It added 2 proven defenders who knew the system and had already produced for a national championship defense. That's why this matters. But here's the part Indiana fans should feel better about. Indiana built the 2026 roster assuming both these guys were gone, right? I mean, the Hoosiers added Toby Asunami, Chidi Obazor from Kansas State. They have Josh Burnham, who's been doing well in practice. I haven't got a chance to make a video about him. They have Daniel Ndukwi on the interior, Tyreek Tucker and Mario Landino. Obviously, if you're an Indiana fan, I don't need to tell you how great they are. This defensive front was supposed to be one of Indiana's strengths before Daley and Wyatt unexpectedly returned. Their return took the room from deep to ridiculously deep. And so losing them, at least for now, takes it back down a level. Doesn't make it bad by any means, but it just takes it down a level. It does not destroy it. And that's where the FanDuel number matters, because Indiana is plus 300 to win the Big Ten, third among conference, everybody in the conference, top 3 of everybody in the conference. Those are not kind of like maybe we sneak into a bowl expectations. Indiana is being priced like a legitimate championship threat. Now, I would argue that with the additions of Daley and Wyatt, they probably should have been a little bit higher, but at least that's where they're at right now. And championship teams need depth, not just starters, but they need depth, because by November, nobody has the exact same 22 guys they expected to have in August. Look at Charlie Becker last season, him coming on in the middle of the year and how huge he was, not just when Surratt got hurt, but also later on in his time at IU as well, because he actually worked himself into playing regularly. Daley and Wyatt gave Indiana the ability they would give Indiana the ability to rotate proven edge defenders without feeling like the defense has to take a step back. They gave Signetti insurance against injury. They gave Indiana fresh pass rushers late in games against the team standing between the Hoosiers and another Big Ten title. That's why I called it significant, and that's why I do think it's significant if they don't get Daley or Wyatt back anytime soon. It's not catastrophic. That's not what I'm saying. There's a big difference between losing players your roster has built around and losing players who become a massive bonus after your roster was already built. Indiana is dealing with the second one here. If Daley and Wyatt never regain eligibility, the Hoosiers still have a defensive line capable of being one of the better units in the Big Ten, if not the best defensive line in the Big Ten. But if Daley and Wyatt do regain eligibility, Indiana goes right back to having one of the deepest defensive fronts in college football. So here's what Indiana fans should actually watch for. Do Daley and Wyatt seek separate injunctions? Does the broad Wisney appeal move quickly for the matter? Do they continue practicing while this all plays out? And how does Signetti set the defensive end rotation? While he does not know whether two proven veterans will actually be available on Saturdays, I think he trusts Bryant Haynes to make that decision for them and their position coaches to be able to do that the right way. Because Indiana cannot wait. The coaches have to prepare Osunami, Sami, Obazor, Burnham, Nundukwe, and everyone else as if the help is not coming. If Daly and Wyatt can't come back, or if they don't come back, it is what it is. If they do come back, that's great. Now you have a luxury problem if they can come back. If they do not, Indiana cannot let the court ruling in late August become an excuse for the defense that already has plenty of talent. So here is the truth as clearly as I can give it to you. Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt are currently ineligible for games because of the 10th Circuit stayed the nationwide preliminary injunction that had given them a path back. They are expected to be able to keep practicing. Their 2026 stories are not necessarily finished. They could potentially pursue separate legal protection, or the broader appeal could eventually change their status again. But until something changes, Indiana has to prepare for the season as though Daley and Wyatt will not be playing in it. And if they eventually get them back, then a team sitting at plus 300 to win the Big Ten gets two proven defensive playmakers dropped back into their rotation of what they've already built to survive without those two guys. And that is, I mean, that's not really like super bad news today, because you still got guys there, even if they can't come back for at least the time being. It's not necessarily the end of the story. And like I said, they can still come back. We just have to see if they'll get there and how they do it. So like and subscribe to the Big Ten Huddle for more Big Ten football and basketball analysis as we cut through the noise and explain what's actually happening. And Indiana fans, tell me in the comments, are you expecting Daley and Wyatt to eventually get back on the field, or are you preparing for the season without them? Would love to get your comments. Would love to get your thoughts. And please do join us on Sunday and Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, live on YouTube. Podcasts are posted the next day. On Sunday nights, we recap the entire week of all the Big Ten games. On Tuesday, we preview all the Big Ten games that come up that next week. We got a lot of football coming up, and we are so excited to talk about it with you here on the Big Ten Huddle. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening and watching. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.